Hello and welcome back to my channel and my Val Lewton retrospective. And today we're talking about The Seventh Victim. What a strange little film this is. A cheap little production from 1943, barely an hour and 10 minutes long. And yet it exerts a weird fascination over so many cinephiles. You know, a lot of cinephiles treat this film almost like it's a cult within a cult. You know, the cult films of Val Lewton, but this one has a special aura about it. Many people pick it as one of their favourite films. The critic Jonathan Rosenbaum picks this as one of his 100 best films of all time. And there are other people who do too, including this guy. You'll find it on my website in my list of 100 films. Why? What's so special about this little movie? Is it that 17 years before Hitchcock gave us Psycho, there was a shower scene in which a young woman is threatened by a mysterious, shadowy female figure beyond the curtain? Is it because 25 years before Roman Polanski gave us Rosemary's Baby, this is a story about a group of upper-middle-class Manhattanites playing at being devil worshippers? This is a film that's ahead of its time. Let's try and unpick it. We start off with our old friend, Arnold Bocklin. Yes, and the Isle of the Dead. It's a kind of stylized version of it over the title card. A kind of stained glass picture with a man taking a woman, looks like she's dead, towards this island with cypress trees. But it's basically the Isle of the Dead again. And the film starts with this quote from John Donne. "I run from death, and death meets me fast, and all my pleasures are like yesterday." This is a Hollywood movie. What a grim way to open the film. And then what cuts in is children's voices. And they're learning their French, they're conjugating their verbs. Je cherche, tu cherches, il cherche. Cherche means, of course, looking for, searching. And this whole film is going to be a film of searching. Of a young woman, played by the lovely Kim Hunter, 3 years before A Matter of Life and Death with Powell and Pressburger, who's forced to leave her private school, her girls' school, and go to New York to find her sister because the money's been cut off. So this is a story of, it's a rites of passage for a young girl becoming a woman. And it starts off with the voices of these children talking about searching, looking for, as Kim Hunter will come to look for her sister. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about the opening shot of this film, right? The opening shot uses the same staircase that we saw in the townhouse in Cat People, except it's got a very odd shot. So you're sort of above, and the staircase is going left to right, right? And Kim Hunter comes up the steps towards the door. She knocks on the door, goes in, and then the film cuts to her coming in right to left. Now, most filmmakers will tell you don't do that kind of thing because it's jarring. But there it is, right at the beginning. That shot gives a clue to the strangeness of this film. It makes strange. We're sort of placed off-kilter. And the whole movie places us off-kilter. We're going to follow this young woman on the search for her sister in New York. New York, this place of loudness and cars and modernity, and it's going to make New York strange. It's going to turn it into a strange of frightening spaces. And that's what's so exciting about this movie. It reminds me a little bit of Carl Dreyer's Vampire, in the way it makes ordinary spaces odd and peculiar. Two of the best sequences in this film follow this. In one sequence, the girl decides that the clue to her sister's disappearance is in an office block at night. She's working with this private detective. They break into the office, and you get this incredible scene where you're in this very normal New York office block, and it's in darkness, and the end of the corridor is completely shrouded in shadow. And it becomes one of the most terrifying spaces in movies. Just going to the end of that corridor with the door is terrifying. The man, the private eye, goes towards the end. And then there's a pause. He comes out and he's sort of staggering a bit, so she goes to help him. She gets him out into the light and realises he's been stabbed, and he falls down dead in front of her. It's a brilliant piece of surrealistic staging. Later, she goes on the subway, which is a terrifying place in New York if you've ever been, and she's on the subway, And three guys come on that look like they've been at a party and they're a bit drunk. And they sit down opposite her, already a kind of threatening space for a young woman. And then she looks and she realises that the man they're holding up is actually the corpse of the man she's just left in the office block. One of the great eerie scenes of American horror cinema, where suddenly this subway becomes a trap and a very frightening, surrealist, almost Bunwellian space. The whole movie operates in this fashion. So what we've got here, it's a rites of passage movie. This mystery will take this girl from being a girl to being a woman, and it's a making strange movie. It makes New York strange, and it makes the adult world strange. Now, this movie, I'll admit, teeters on the brink of pretension, right? So this girl goes into this new space, the adult world of the city, and she's told to go to Dante restaurant. You know, Dante's Inferno, going down into Inferno. And there is a poet who regularly eats at this restaurant who befriends her and becomes her guide. One of many guides, kind of Virgil-like guides that she has through the film. There's a poet, there's this private detective I've spoken about. There's the boyfriend of the sister who she's looking for, who rather incongruously and, you know, not very believably becomes Kim Hunter's lover. I've never quite accepted that aspect of the film's plot. So there's lots of references, and then as if that's not enough, all these references to Dante, later on there's references to Cyrano de Bergerac, that the poet figure is kind of helping the two young lovers to come together. It teeters on the brink of being a bit mannered. There are elements in the film, like Tom Conway turns up. You know, he was the husband figure in I Walked with a Zombie, and the psychiatrist in Cat People. And he's very similar to that oily role in Cat People in this movie. And it's so that, you know, for the first half of the movie, you think he's a rather devilish character, a rather seductive character. And then it's revealed that actually he's on the side of good. But the scriptwriters felt the need to put in a sort of rather awkward dialogue between him and the poet to make out, oh, actually he is good and he is his friend. So the film teeters on the brink of pretension. But it's rescued by its extraordinary and strange feel. It's the texture of this film that is everything. Now, I mentioned at the start that this has a sort of Roman Polanski-esque feel about it. The bad in the film is these upper middle class Manhattanites who are devil worshippers. They're actually amusingly called Pilatists. Pilates was devilry back in the 1940s, you know. And they have these rather nice tea parties in this lovely Manhattan apartment. And what's interesting about this film, at no point are these people really very frightening. In fact, they're rather pathetic. The film demeans them, it weakens them. The whole film is deliberately anticlimactic, which is very unusual in a horror film. But it's an important part of the way the movie is working. Now, partly I think this is because of propaganda. This film was made in 1943, height of the Second World War. And it's clear that these people are an analogy of fifth colonists, American Nazis. And what's also interesting here is the thematics of the film. Here is this child coming into the terrible web of adulthood. And at the end, the parting shot towards these villains comes from Tom Conway's psychiatrist, and he just says to them the Lord's Prayer. This prayer that we all learn in childhood. And that's his way of denunciating their cult, their beliefs. So in this film about a child becoming a woman, the actual way, there's a nice piece of irony in the way that the sophistication, the supposed sophistication of these adults, these conspirators, is actually undermined by a piece of simple, almost childlike spirituality and goodwill. And interestingly, in the end, they can't kill the sister, Jacqueline. They've been keeping her prisoner, but their rules forbid them from the horrible act of murder, actually getting their hands dirty. They try to force Jacqueline to kill herself. Now, this is where the seventh victim becomes really interesting and really twisted. And what is fascinating, this is a Hollywood movie that in one of the very early scenes shows that Jacqueline, the elder sister of this young girl played by Kim Hunter, keeps a room, she rents a room, and all there is in the room is a chair, and above it, a noose. This is a woman who's keeping a standby suicide kit. How, morbid is that? And then we come to the end of the film. Jacqueline escapes this mob of upper middle class Satan worshippers. And we get this extraordinary ending to the film where she runs through New York. And this guy, this shadowy figure, is on her tail. And she keeps bumping into the denizens of the New York streets. She meets these people coming out of a theatre. She meets the players spilling out onto the side street. People revelling in a bar coming out onto the cold streets. And they somehow form a kind of protective barrier around her. But she's still afraid. And she seems almost afraid of them as she is of this man following her. And that's what the film is about. It's about a woman who is afraid to live. It's a peculiar movie. It's peculiar for a Hollywood film to fixate on that theme. Eventually she gets back to her suicide kit and she meets poor old Elizabeth Russell, again consigned to a cameo, but a very interesting one. There she is. She's a young woman who's dying, trapped in her flat, never going out. And the two women meet on the stairs. And this is the climactic meeting of the film. Very curious. And one of them decides to go into her suicide kit room and kill herself. And the other one, despite death coming to meet her fast, runs out into the night to face life, to breathe, to laugh. The desire to live versus the fear of living. An incredible scene. So you see Elizabeth Russell rushing out down the stairs, dressed up to the nines, and you hear the sound of a chair hitting a wooden floor. That's how a Hollywood movie ended in 1943. Quite incredible. This is a movie that gets under your skin. It's not a masterpiece of film craft. It's odd and in places a bit annoying, as I've said, a bit pretentious. But God, it stays with you. It gets under your skin. It is what Gilbert Adair called an unidentified filmic object. It's a film that is more fascinating. It's beautiful in its weirdness. And it's a film I go back to again and again, and I can't stop thinking about it. I can see all its flaws, but it fascinates me. And if you've never seen it, I think it will fascinate you too. Thanks very much.